The Gentleman, Scandent Season, Year 1. Leopold frowned, staring dismissively at the two women in front of him. The stupor he had been in before had melted away, leaving him able to acutely judge the situation. At some point, that idiot Mammon had managed to off-road his transport, and these brigands planned to take advantage of the fact. The one with the ridiculous winter gear seemed friendly enough, but the one with the shaved head was watching him with entirely too much caution. She made a sign in the air that was as quick and incomprehensible as any military claptrap he had seen. Luckily, perhaps, it seemed that her companion hadn't understood it either. Sighing, the drab one cracked her neck and stared at him.
"Hey, old man. You wouldn't know anything about this tower, would you?"
She jabbed a finger towards the tower, his tower, and Leopold smiled obsequiously.
"Good heavens, girl. An old man like me? I am afraid I am just a simple traveler, the same as the two of you. Actually, both of you seem quite well armed. Is there any chance I could beg your aid while I wait for my companions? Though I am merely a man of refinement, I can at least offer you the pleasure of my company."
Perhaps his smile was out of practice, because Shaved Head didn't respond. With a big smile, Wintercoat did, however, and to his surprise, he noticed that she was stained with her own blood. He bit the desire to tell her to plug the damn thing up.
"Of course. If you're all alone, it'd be the least we could to make sure you get to wherever you're going in one piece. Defending the defenseless is an important part of a hero's life, after all. So, where are you headed to?" "Leopold. Leopold? Ah, you can just call me but that, if you like. Old habits, you know, die hard."
Smiling to himself and executing a somewhat stiff bow, Leopold stared towards Wintercoat, who looked confused and then nodded.
"Right. I'm Calimere, and this is the brave Ruslana." "Well, Calimere, such a lovely name, might I add? To answer your question, though I headed in the direction of a great river known as the Maw. I simply cannot go there until my much-beloved companions return." Question. Where did you last see your companions? If you actually had sight of them around here, we could speed things up by looking for them.
Shaved Head, Ruslana, ventured cautiously. Leopold threw her a thankful grin.
"Oh yes, that would be most appreciated. I doubt they've gone far, probably no further than, well, here or so."
Walking forward as fast as he could manage, Leopold noticed they both seemed shocked, and perhaps even familiar with Mammon's cart. His lips curled into a snarl that just as quickly disappeared when Calimere shot him a quizzical glance.
"What did you run into that totaled your cart like this? I've seen some accidents in my time, usually horse and carriage related, but a hand cart. Mysterious, isn't it? I like to assume that some horrible act of Providence wrought this fate upon us, or possibly a large rock. You wouldn't believe how many useless rocks used to litter this stretch of road."
The two girls shot each other expressions that he couldn't care less about, because a familiar red blur was making its way through the sky, and quickly, belching fire as she fell. Crimsolino landed in a crumpled heap in front of them, feathers worn and panting from where she had taken several deep cuts. Leopold immediately, and with some effort, fell to his feet. His initial rage was mitigated by concern at damage to a useful ally, of course, but more importantly with a desire not to offend any potentially useful allies.
"Crimsolino. It looks like something terrible happened." "Ah. Sweet Leopold. You were right, it appears, and I'm sorry for disappearing, but it seems you shall have to wait for my recovery just a little longer. I'm afraid that even my measures weren't enough to—"
Whatever it was, Leopold stilled the voice of the raggedly breathing harpy with a single finger in a whisper. A whisper that indicated whatever she wished to say, she should not say it for the fear of her wounds, or any other that might find her. Calimere took several steps forward, brows knit.
"Hey, I could probably heal her if you want." "No, that won't be necessary. For one thing, she heals quickly enough, I can assure you. For another, asking a stranger for such a favor, I would never rely on another for such a thing."
Calimere frowned noticeably, but didn't object even though it was clear she wanted to. Shaved Head was tapping the ground nervously with her foot, eyes never leaving his. Leopold took a few moments just to smile at her, until finally she turned away. Much better. What wasn't was when Mammon came running through the trees, looking to be in much better health than Crimsolino.
Boss. I think that thing you were looking for was right here the entire time.
His golden eyes widened as he saw the two girls, and then his hand slapped into his forehead at breakneck speed.
Oh. Mammon, 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 don't tell me you know these fine people and can't properly introduce us. Didn't I tell you guys to get out of here?
Mammon spluttered, looking angry, but even more terrified. Leopold licked his lips, enjoying every moment.
So, is this your boss, Mammon? Bad taste in employers.
Ruslana frowned and ran a hand over her head.
Hey, Leo. Why not just stop whatever crazy thing you may or may not be planning, and stop pestering hard-working merchants like this guy, here? You say that like I'm crazy, and asking me politely will get you what you want.
Her rifle fell into her hands with practiced ease.
I wasn't asking. Well, it seems that I don't get to have nearly as much fun as I deserve. Let it begin, then. Mammon, keep them busy for a while, would you?
His leg slammed into the sweating demon, prodding him forward to the shock of both girls, as well as Mr. Mammon himself.
But Boss, I mean, they're not really that bad. And you know, me and fights, ahaha. Do I look as if I care, Mammon? Kill them, already.
There was a pause in which anything could have happened. Mammon was awash with sweat, swaying from side to side almost comically. And before the moment could snap, his eyes shut close and he whispered something apologetically towards the prone harpy. And then, flailing and sniveling, Mammon bolted before Leopold could properly chastise him, dashing through the bushes and with surprising speed.
Damnable imp! Well, it appears that I am out of recourse. Are you going to kill me, then, or not? I can't imagine that a hero would stoop to something so baselessly cruel.
He smiled in the direction of the two, neither of whom had moved in the confusion from moments before. Kaylee Muir did look somewhat conflicted, but...
I'm not a hero.
Ruslana spat towards him as a shot rang out amongst the clearing.
Ah! Ahaha!
Leopold laughed nervously.
Damn! I missed.
And at that brief curse as Shaved Head took aim again, it was Leopold's turn to turn tail and run. He couldn't run quickly however, and he knew that the two were walking, not running after him. It was painfully obvious that they could catch up to him at any time they liked, and knowing this is what led him back towards the tower, up its many flights of stairs, and finally up to the top. Leopold lay heavily against his cane, wheezing in exhaustion as the sound of feet alerted him to the presence of the two of them. Ruslana kept the old man in her sights as sweat tea-coated her fingertips, while Kaylee Muir held a useless-looking sword, which, he noted with some amusement, was made of wood, pointed straight at him.
I don't know why anyone who came from Lana's world would want to do the same kind of thing to the world of someone else, but listen up and listen well. You've got the chance to surrender right now, and start over anew. You can destroy your powers and atone for your crimes, if that's what you choose.
Kaylee Muir spoke with clarity and sympathy, but her tone was unyielding, and he would almost have admired it, if it had come from someone else.
Thank you for your kind words, but now that I have both of you where I want you, I'm afraid that won't be happening.
Leopold thrust his cane into the stone floor surrounding the makeshift chamber he had built to monitor the ley lines of this strange place, and watched as they crackled into life as the stone shifted around them. A second shot rang out, bouncing harmlessly off of the air in front of Leopold's brow and hissing as heat warped and distorted the broken shell. The air itself grew heavy with an unnatural heat as Leopold smiled wanly, enjoying the look of surprise on Calamir's face, and the fear on that of the other girl. Yanking the cane free, he cut through the sky with it, and where it had been, thick red lines tore themselves from the air and formed loose trails of painfully bright light. Kaylee Muir threw herself in front of the stunned and confused Ruslana, knocking her to the ground as one of the beams of light cut through the air where they had been moments before with a red hiss, leaving only the scent of cinders and electricity. As the two dodged the now animated floor beneath them and the scores of tiny red lights that left painful welts wherever they cut, Leopold strode towards them, pleased as they fought down along the stairs, steadily retreating towards the growing sound of disjointed trumpets blaring exhausted fanfares into the setting of the night. For outside, a host of strangely doe-like and misshapen white blobs, humanoid in appearance but pulsating and crushed under their own weight, began to pour into the building. Though the heroic girl with the blonde hair and the unyielding tone fought beautifully, she was constantly weighed down by the increasingly out-of-element shaved-headed girl, and the battle was taking its toll on both of them.
I do believe you had made mention of surrender? I am afraid I do not accept it, either.
Behind them, the gibbering horde grew numerous, and began to assume the shape of humans, however faint. Some held banners, and others held weapons, made of the same immaterial blankness that seemed to form them. Leopold relaxed on his cane, exhausted from his show of force, but completely content. His servitors drew a line around his opponents, expressionless faces turning into gaping translucent teeth. Kalimira closed her eyes. Though his own magic had the downside of cauterizing wounds, she was bleeding quite heavily, apparently from something else, likely a curse magnitudes above the weak imitation he could manage, even here. And yet, she looked completely undaunted despite the hordes around her and the pale complexion she held. This girl was clearly too weak to stand. And yet... Leopold began to shake as the hero took several unshaking steps towards him, sword still extended. Kalimira turned her head to Ruslana, who had taken multiple scars from his magic, and Leopold could not see her expression.
Sorry about this, Lana. Take care of yourself.
And then she turned in a whirlwind of motion, screaming ferociously as her blade arced from target to target, each lump and figure splitting into dust and heat as the joyous light that surrounded it rent their illusions asunder. Leopold fell back, tumbling over himself as he attempted to run away, only just able to catch the hero's blade on the surface of his cane. His entire army, the fruit of nearly a year's consolidation and attempt to shape this world, lay destroyed in mere moments. He hadn't realized he had started screaming, but his movements were sloppy and weak. Despite his cane doing something to nullify whatever horrifying strength the hero held, it was not enough. Once again, they fought up the stairs, and this time Leopold could manage no more. He collapsed, prone and exhausted as Kalimira advanced, her expression fierce and yet full of regret.
It is a pity you would not have accepted surrender. But whatever you intend to do, it is clear that you do so with evil intent. I will not allow you to hurt one more soul.
Her eyes dilated, and she coughed, then expelled a torrent of deep, unnaturally red blood, and fell to the floor. Leopold didn't believe his eyes, and began to laugh, though his laughter was tinged with terror. He tried to find the strength to kick the prone, still breathing hero, but even that escaped him.
It appears we are at a draw, hero. When we meet again, I will make sure to kill you more quickly.
Smirking and trying to look more confident than his ancient body felt, Leopold dashed down the stairs as quickly as he could manage. The clatter of stone against his cane should have alerted her, but Ruslana was as tired as he was. For when they met midway up the stairs, she was breathing heavily, clearly even more damaged than he had thought, and using her rifle axe as some sort of cane. It struck him as oddly amusing, and he wasn't sure how he was able to react so quickly. Yet, with a strength born of petty hatred and frustration. His right hand took his cane tightly, lanced it through the air. She raised her weapon with some speed, putting in front of her to block. But didn't realize where he intended to strike as her left eye opened wide. And she screamed. Chapter end.